I'm also recording this session. So yeah, I'll start with my introduction, then I'll move into a little context setting on why we are doing this webinar today, and then we'll move into the actual agenda of the session. So my name is Prachi Shrivastava. I have been working in the space of ESG and corporate sustainability for more than 4 years now. I'm currently working independently as a freelancer in this field. But before this, I have been associated with the likes of EY, Sustain Analytics, etc. In my whatever short journey within ESG, I have worked mostly as an ESG consultant. So there I had worked a lot on sustainability reporting, developing ESG strategies for corporate companies. I have worked with a large plethora of industries from oil and gas to automobile to e-commerce to banks. So I've had my hand dipped in almost all the sectors in India, as well as some of the companies in Middle East, Southeast Asia, Europe as well. And then in my very recent role in Sustain Analytics, I was working on this very niche product called second party opinion on green bonds and other labeled financial instruments. We'll talk about these terminologies at some stage during our presentation. But yeah, that's about me. In terms of my education, I am an engineering graduate, and then I've moved on to do my master's from Indian Institute of Forest Management. I've done my MBA in environment management, and then onwards I started my whole profession within ESG and corporate sustainability. Yeah, I think that's about me. And about this session, for a long time, many people have been reaching out to me to take guidance about the sector, how to get into the jobs, what kind of courses should we do, what kind of role will be suitable for me, and so on and so forth. Someone has texted that I'm not audible. Am I audible to everyone else?
Yes, you are audible.
Surikant, can you please check your speakers once? Yeah, I'll continue with my narration. Yeah, so many people have been reaching out to me, and I thought that it will be better to kind of collate everyone who has been looking out for for kind of a similar guidance from within the sector, and it will be good to share whatever knowledge and insights I have gained with all of you collectively at once, and that's why the webinar today. So right, I'll put up my screen on sharing, and then I'll take you all through a very short presentation that I have made for today's session. And I hope you all enjoy the session, and I hope at the end of it you take something away from the session, you find it useful, and it is something that yeah, that can help you in your career progression. Is my screen visible to everyone?
Yes.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much. Right. So I've given the introduction. Let's move on to the agenda for today. And yeah, this is something that you have also seen in your emails earlier. So we are going to talk about different career options within ESG. What are the skills required to get into those different career options, different job roles that are suitable for you? What are some of the professional courses? Because this was also a topic that kept coming a lot. What are some of the professional courses, as well as what are some of the short-term or MOOC kind of courses that one can take, to upgrade their knowledge within ESG. Then people also asked for some resources. So I've tried and compile a list of some newsletters, some podcasts that you can refer to, to be updated into the field. And then the billion-dollar question: how to begin the job hunt, how to land a job in ESG sector. That's what we'll try to address. And then we'll move to question and answers. So within question and answer, I'll first try and address the queries that I've already received through the webinar registration form. And then we'll move on to take on live questions. And throughout the presentation, throughout whenever I'm talking, if you have any question, please feel free to put it up in the chat box, so that towards the end, when we are taking questions, I can start with those questions. And if it is something very, very urgent, you please feel free to stop me, but try and keep that option limited, because we want to complete the whole session within this stipulated time, and we want to keep a larger portion for the live Q&A. So yeah, I'll try and complete my speaking, the first 6 parts in next 60 to 75 minutes, and then we'll move to the Q&A. And just another small request for the Q&A. Try and keep your questions more generic, so the larger audience can be benefited from those. If you still have individual questions, so what we can do is that when the session formally ends at 6 p.m., after that, those of you who have individual questions can stay back on the session. On the link, I'll also stay back, and then we can discuss individual queries. Right. So is that sound good to everyone? We are good to go. All right. Yeah. Somebody wants to say something? No. Okay. Cool. I'll start with the session right ahead. Yeah, so before actually moving into the different career options within ESG, I just want to take a step back and, bring us all up to a common understanding of what is ESG, right? Firstly, please don't get into, any myths that ESG is something rocket science, it's something very different, very new. No, it's not. ESG as a concept has been there for a very long time now. It's nothing new. ESG is what sustainability is, right? Concept-wise, there's no difference between ESG and sustainability, right? So I'm sure you all would have seen that Venn diagram somewhere, at some point where, that the three circles, one represent environment, one represents social, other represents economics. And, at times we also call it planet, people, and profit. And at the intersection of these three circles is what we call it sustainability. And rightly so, for like past 1 or 2 decades, almost every corporate company has started moving into direction of becoming more sustainable, or at least, to be seen as more sustainable. And then the same applies to banks and financial institutions as well, right? So we know there are these polluting companies, fossil fuel companies, oil exploration companies that are continuing their their actions, their business as usual, because they're getting a lot of investments from someone. Someone is giving in a lot of money into those kitties for them to continue all exploration. So in past 5 years, the world has stood up to those financial companies. So the world has stood up to those financial companies and said, hey, if you want the world to move away from fossil fuel, it is you who have to stop pumping money into fossil fuel, companies. And that's where the concept of responsible investment came into picture. And responsible investment is as simple as it sounds. That is investing in a responsible manner. It's simply owning up to the consequences of your investments. So if you're investing in a fossil fuel company, invest to the own up the consequences of resulting emissions. If you are investing in a company that works in a sweatshop manner, own up to the consequences of, say, abuse of labor rights, abuse of human rights, so on and so forth. And so that is what ESG is, right? Like an investing company, an investor, a bank, an asset management company who wants to put their money into a company, into a project, into an organization, into a portfolio that is responsible in their business undertaking, that is not polluting, that is not abusing any human rights, that is maintaining all forms of good governance, that is not evading taxes. And then there's this whole list of what comes under the ESG criteria, right? So please don't be confused. ESG is what sustainability is. The only difference is that ESG is an investor-centric word. ESG is as a term has come up to be in line with the whole investment ecosystem in the world and the macro, financial system that talks about the big investment players and big corporate companies. So yeah, moving forward, if we try to look at what are the current career options within ESG field, let's try and understand what are the different stakeholders that's working in the whole field, right? So we have just talked about investors and companies who are at the receiving end of these investments, right? So we understand that there are these two stakeholders for sure. So when I say investors, that means financial institution, banks, asset management companies, etc. And the companies who are receiving the investment could be any company. They could belong to any industry, any sector, from oil and gas to FMCG, to small startups, polluting companies, energy companies, even the companies that are working into renewable sector. All these companies are at the receiving ends of investments, right? So these are the two major stakeholders. Now, between these two, suppose A is giving out money, B is at the receiving end of money, there needs to be a mediator, right? So the regulators and rating providers work as the mediator between these two major stakeholders, right? So the companies which are within the industry, like the corporate companies, they put up their ESG performance in the public domain, right? So they try and tell the world that, see, we are doing so good on our ESG front, to try and attract investors, especially the investors who wants to put their money into ESG aligned companies, or they want to put their money into good causes, right? And not just good causes, just no investor wants to put their money into polluting company, and that automatically becomes a screening of ESG. And that is equivalent to putting money into a company that is doing or performing good on the ESG front. Right. But now for investors, they have limited capacity, they have limited bandwidth, they do not or cannot, look up at the sustainability reports of each and every portfolio companies and, try and assess that, which company is doing good, which company is doing bad, which company is just showing that they are doing good, but not actually doing anything good. And there comes in the rating providers. So regulators and rating providers take up this information which is put out in the public domain by the corporate companies. They assess that information, they crunch it industry level, and they bring out ratings, rankings, and indexes. And those indexes and ratings rankings are then used by the financial institutions to be able to make their decision on where they want to put their money in, or wherever they want to invest. Those decisions are made based on these ratings and rankings. So that's the role of regulators and rating providers. And I'm sure that the three stakeholders are clear. And the fourth and another important stakeholder in the whole ecosystem are consulting companies. So what consulting companies do is that the corporate companies that are trying to, say, put it out in the public domain that, we are so good, we are doing so good on ESG front, might not again have the capabilities to do it all by themselves, right? And that's where consultants come into picture, that they help and advise the corporate companies to develop their ESG strategies, their ESG policies, their reports, and help them improve their ratings, help them disclose their performance on different frameworks. Everything that a corporate do in order to sell themselves as sustainable company, a consulting help them do that. And it's now an increasing trend that all corporate companies are now developing their own ESG department so that they can do a lot of this stuff in-house as well, right? So these are the four major stakeholders. And of course, there are more, like there would be think tanks, there would be academic research institutions, government, NGOs. But for the sake of the investing ESG focus, those are not as prominent as the fours that you can see on your screen right now. So I would limit my discussion today to these four stakeholders, and these are then what makes the four career options in ESG based on my understanding. Right. And some few examples, what you see on screen within each of these four buckets are of course not an exhaustive list. Like, these are just the examples. And, if you do a Google search, you'll find a much longer list than this. And I'm trying to help you understand what kind of companies would come under consulting, under industry, under rating provider, under financial institution, and what can become your potential employers. Right. So within consulting, of course, there are big fours, there are big threes, there are side-wise consultings like Grant Thornton, Accenture, BDO, etc. You also see like Infosys and TCS kind of companies, which were traditionally software consulting companies, have also now ventured into ESG consulting. Like they have developed their whole team of 50 plus resources and candidates who are full-time working into ESG consulting. So you can just imagine the extent of growth within the ESG market right now. Similarly here we have rating providers. So companies like S&P, Bloomberg, these are the companies who were giving investor solutions traditionally. These companies used to develop these indices and ratings and rankings for the industry or for the corporate company based on their financial performance traditionally. Now, since they see that there's a there's a movement from investor side to look at the ESG performance, these companies have also started providing ratings and indexes for the corporate company based on their ESG performances as well. So that's the kind of a separate arm. The first logo before S&P here you see is of Sustainalytics. The Sustainalytics, as like MSCI, provides ESG risk rating for corporate companies. Then within industries, as I said, each and every company within each and every sector you can imagine will fall under this category. So, your potential pool of employer becomes huge here, right? Every company, from a big corporate company like Shell and Unilever to a small startup like Licious, each of these have their own ESG departments, and all companies outside, say, this screen of the presentation, every company that you can think of that has an HR department right now also have an ESG department. Either they have, or they're working on it, or they'll have it in next 5 years. So, again, that's the extent of ESG ecosystem that we are talking about, that each company, because no corporate company can manage or work without investments or without getting investments, right? And to be able to attract good investments, they all need to show that they are doing good on ESG front. And to do that, they need to have their in-house ESG capabilities, and B, also take advice, support from the consultancies. So both these sectors, consultancies as well as industries, are growing rapidly on ESG front. They're building their teams like crazy. And yeah, that's how the market is growing right now. And then moving to financial institutions, so that includes banks, asset management companies, investment banks. All these companies, before investing into any portfolio companies, they want to assess that whatever company they're investing is good, or say whatever emission the company is doing, what part of their emission will subsequently fall back on their own kitty of emissions. And to, of course, to do those assessments, they are also building their own ESG team. And here it's called ESG investment team, because at the end they are doing investments and they need investment bankers, financial candidates who have financial background and financial understanding, with the additional understanding of ESG. So, for most of the people who do not have a financial background, a financial academic understanding, the other three, like the consultancies, the industries, and the rating providers, are a better target as compared to financial institutions. And people who are already into the finance industry but want to explore ESG, for them, of course, the financial institutes are the best target, because they completely matches their profiles and skill sets. To which we are moving to the next subtopic, that is the skills required for all these different buckets. And I hope the whatever we have talked until now is clear, and we can move forward. If you have any question, please feel free to keep putting it on chat. I can see the kind of comments coming up in chat, and I'll open that up at the end of the presentation. Right. Yeah. So within skills, firstly, I hope it's evident that here C, RR, I, and FI corresponds to the previous slides, where C means consulting, RR means rating providers and regulators, I corresponds to industries, and FI corresponds to financial institutions. Right. So if you're looking for a job in this sector, of course, soft skills are as necessary as it would be in any other sector. And soft skills consist of good communication skills, good presentation skills, good writing skills, good networking skills, etc. And they're a must to have to succeed in any kind of corporate jobs. And in here, I would definitely say that they're comparatively more important within consulting, and would be comparatively less important within say rating providers, because when you're working within consulting, you'll have an day-to-day interaction with clients, you'll have to work on a lot of presentations, whereas while you're working as a rating provider, or an ESG analyst, as they call it, you'll have to crunch a lot of data. You'll have to work on, culling secondary research, culling data from reports, and those sort of things. It's comparatively less dynamic than consulting, and the regulators also don't have as active interaction with their clients as consulting organizations have. So then based on the nature of your job, your soft skills might differ a little or might go up and down, but it never hurts to have good soft skills. So I think that is mandatory throughout all four stakeholders. Then ESG as a concept, of course, it is the most important skill to have, within the technical skills. And when I say ESG, I don't only mean that you understand the full form of ESG, right? You need to have a good level of understanding of the criteria that comes under E, S, and G separately, and what does those criteria mean. Like, so for example, when we talk about environment, we know that we need to focus on renewable energy, but it does not end just there, right? So within renewable energy, you need to be aware of the recent developments. For example, there are hydrogen fuel cells coming up. So you even if you don't get into the engineering technicalities of say hydrogen fuel cell, but you still need to understand the challenges and the current trends, right? So those kind of detailings you need to understand for the whole ESNG. Next up is the frameworks. There are multiple reporting frameworks, standards. There's GRI, there's CDP, TCFD, BRSR, and so yes, you need to understand these frameworks if you are targeting to get a job in consulting or within an industry, because at both these places you'll have to be working on these frameworks, these communication tools day in and day out, and it's a must. For ratings provider, you need to understand what these frameworks are, but you need not to be an expert on these frameworks, because you only have to read the reports and not actually make the reports. And similarly for financial institutions, those are not that important, because that's what the rating providers are doing, that they are working as a barrier, not as a barrier, but kind of a bridge between the industries and the investors. Then I think the same thing applies to GHG accounting here, that it's must for consulting and industry people, because you'll actually have to be doing GHG accounting for either your own company if you're working in the industry, or for the client company if you're working as a consultant. But again, not so important for rating providers and financial institution. Whereas data analysis, so that is like a big data analysis, right? So GHG accounting in itself is a data heavy work, but it's a separate skill altogether. And here, when I say data analysis, it's about crunching large data. So probably a little overview about Python or other softwares like NVivo, etc. Those would come in handy if you want to work with financial institutions or within rating providers as ESG analyst. Then a basic understanding of finance and how finance and investing work is definitely a must for for you to be able to work with financial institutions, because that's what they are doing. And as I said earlier, that if you do not come from finance background, then this sector is comparatively hard to crack. Right. So I hope until now it's clear. We have covered what is ESG. We have covered what are the different career options in ESG. We had tried and understand how the ESG investing ecosystem is working. There are corporate companies, there are investors, there are rating providers, and then there are consultancies. And you have the maximum possibility of getting a job is at consultancies, because they have really large teams, and you need not to have a very specific technical understanding of a particular sector, right? So if you're coming from a generic background, consultancies are your best option. If you're already coming from a particular industry, so for example, if you're in civil engineer, you have some understanding of how cement manufacturing works, probably your best chance would be to go and apply for the ESG team of all the cement manufacturing companies in India. Similarly, if you're someone who understands how renewable energy works, probably you should go and apply for those kind of companies. So that's the industry sector, and then the rating providers would take anyone if they are making you do secondary research. But if they're making you do some kind of data analysis, then of course you need to have those skills. Right. So moving forward in our presentation, a lot of you have asked to me separately as well, and in the webinar registration form, that what are some of the options to do professional courses or certification courses, right? So those of you who have not yet done masters and are interested in getting a master's degree in ESG or sustainability can look at these schools and colleges. Of course, this is not an exhaustive list. I've just tried and put up some um, prominent names. So for example, Indian Institute of Forest Management, which is IIFM at first, it's my own alma mater. They have a really great program in sustainability management, and it's equivalent to a whole 2-year MBA, very recommended program. Then within the IIMs, IIM Lucknow has taken a lead in developing their own sustainability management program, which is of course going good. Then we have a similar program at TERI School of Advanced Studies. Then TIS in Mumbai offers an MA in climate change, which is very much in line with sustainability and ESG. Then if we talk about some foreign universities, then HEC Paris has a very popular sustainability management program. It's a 1-year master's course. Columbia University in New York has Earth Institute that offers a 2-year sustainability management program, and the list goes on and on. There are many institutes which are now. Hello? Someone wants to say something? I would request all participants to be on mute if you're not saying something. If you want to say something, please unmute and you can speak up. Okay, I'll go ahead. Yeah, so I was talking about these institutions which are providing sustainability courses. There are many institutions that are providing niche courses on climate finance, on sustainable investing, on sustainable finance. There's this whole plethora of institutions, which again you will find a longer list on Google. Coming to certifications, these 4 are the primary. Just a second, I need to. Yeah. Right. So certifications, these 4 are currently the more popular, professional certifications. One is from the CFA Institute, which is in the ESG investing. Then we have the Sustainability and Climate Risk Certification, popularly known as SCR, from GARC, which is Global Institute on Global Association of Risk Professionals. Then we have another sustainable accounting certification called FSA from SESB. This is at 2 levels. There's FSA level 1, FSA level 2. Once you clear level 1, then only you can appear for the exams of level 2. And then we have a CFI certification, which is in generic ESG or called a ESG specialization. Now, what I recommend about these certifications is that if you're someone who is trying to move from a different field into ESG and you already have, say, 2-3 years of experience, you can go ahead with these certifications. If you're someone who has already done a master's in a sustainability or an allied course, and you're trying to move into ESG career, you need not to do these certificates as a fresher, not at all. These certificates are quite expensive. Like, so you can see, they all range from 600 plus US dollars, which comes out to be like 47 to 50,000, in Indian rupees. SESB is even more, expensive because there are 2 levels, and if you want to clear both of them, comes out to be like 1,100 US dollars. So yeah, these are expensive, and most of the employers have a learning and development budget for their resources. So what I suggest is that, if you're a fresher, you get into you crack one of the employer, you get into working, and then probably after 2 years or 3 years of your working, you request your employer to sponsor you for these certifications. And as per my understanding, they would be happy to do so. Like, at least the consultings and the industries and the rating provider, they all, because I've worked with all of them, so I know the internal working, and most of them are more than happy to provide sponsorship for these certifications. Right? If at all you still feel like you want to do one of these certifications, because you want to add it up on your CV, or you're not confident enough to appear for an interview, then probably you can go for the CFI certification. It is not as expensive as the others. So the CFI pricing is on subscription basis, right? So you have to pay like $41 per month, which comes out to be around say 25,000 or 20,000 per month. But it is up to you how fast you want to complete the certificate. The other certification like CFA and GAT, they recommend a minimum of 100 hours of study to appear for the examination, which comes out to be like 5 to 6 months if you're studying say 5 hours a week. There's within CFI, if you want to, it's self-paced. If you want to finish up your course within a month, you can do that and appear for your exam and get your certification. So yeah, that's my recommendation. But then of course, if you feel like that this is something which would be beneficial for you and you want to invest money from your own pocket, of course you can do that. Now, coming to the easier solution when it comes to certification and courses are the short-term courses or the MOOC courses which are available online, right? So these are not as hefty as, say 6-month long courses, or not as hefty as like, probably 50,000 rupees. But these are available at comparatively lesser prices. So for example, both Coursera and Udemy have multitude of courses, right? So Coursera have courses from major institutions like University of Pennsylvania, Erasmus University from Europe, and these are all really good standing names, and any course from these is definitely going to add to your CV. And these are not as small as like a 10-hour or a 12-hour MOOC course. These are good 4-course specialization and starts from as low as 3,000 rupees onward. And again, these are self-paced, so you can complete it within a month. Same goes for Udemy. Udemy also gives the option of doing a course for free, but then they did not give you a certificate. So if you want to get certificates, you will have to pay. Otherwise, you can just do the course free for for knowledge gain. So yeah, these two are really good options. Then is something called Earth Academy. So Earth Academy provides certifications specifically on different reporting frameworks, right? So again, there are these multiple frameworks, DRIT, CFD, blah, blah. We talked about these earlier. So if you are someone who wants to understand these frameworks, if you are going to work for an industry and you want to develop these reports, on these different frameworks yourself, maybe you can take up these certification courses from Earth Academy. These are comparatively more expensive than the what say Coursera or Udemy are providing, but what Coursera and Udemy are providing are generic ESG courses on generic ESG investing, etc. But Earth Academy, hi Annie, I have seen that you have raised hand. Just give me like 5 more minutes to complete what I am talking about, and then I'll take your question. Yeah. So Earth Academy is providing specific courses on particular reporting framework, and that's why probably it's more expensive. Now coming to the next one is UNCC Learn. This is my favorite, highly recommended. All courses on UNCC Learn are free of cost, and these are very small bite-sized courses. These range from 2 to 3 hours to 10 to 12 hours. No course is beyond 12 hours here. They are very interactive, very nicely designed courses, and you can definitely use the certificates, but more than that, they really give you a good understanding of the sector. So this is highly recommended. There are multiple courses on climate change, sustainable finance, sustainable investing, green investing, etc. So please check these out. And yeah, then we'll come to resources, but before that, Annie had her hand raised. So Annie, you want to say something?
Hi, yeah, thank you very much for the information. So in one of the couple's slides before, you were talking about greenhouse gas accounting as a skill. I saw several job positions that they ask as a requirement, and I'm wondering if it's just enough to have a good level of understanding, or if there is any certification. I mean, I don't know if it's more technical or it is fine with a good level of understanding.
Sure, I'll answer that. So within GHG accounting, what I would suggest is it is a kind of a technical a kind of a technical hard skill. And if you have the certification, it just brings more credibility to your understanding. But say if you don't have a certification and if you have a hands-on experience on GHG accounting, if you have already done GHG accounting for a company, even if it's like a small piece of it, and that gives you confidence that you understand GHG accounting very well, then you don't need the certificate. But say if for your own understanding you feel like that I need to understand it, and then only I'll get that kind of an confidence to be able to say that I already possess that skill, then probably you can go for certification. Is that good?
Okay, yeah, actually, I don't have any experience. So, is there any web page or any institution that, or somewhere where I can read about
Mhm.
this?
Sure. So, is it okay if we take these questions towards the end? I just want to finish up the presentation, so then we can discuss
Yes,
about the questions freely.
sure, thank you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. Uh, right, coming up to the next part of it, resources, because again, many of you have asked me on the webinar registration form, what resources to follow, what pages to follow. I have tried and compiled a list of some newsletters and podcasts that you can follow for the recent happenings in ESG. But what I recommend here is that don't go, very blindly on, following this, following that, and don't take that kind of pressure to to be reading all of this stuff. The best way to remain updated is to have the right connects on LinkedIn, and people keep posting about whatever new reports have come out, whatever new standards have revised their frameworks, and those things keep appearing on LinkedIn. So just have the right connects on LinkedIn, and then you can read almost all the good things there itself without having to have that pressure of going through a newsletter weekly or monthly. But if it's something that is easier for you, if it does not bore you, please go ahead. And again, this is not an exhaustive list. You will find hundreds of more such newsletters and podcasts if you just do a plain Google search. And between newsletters and podcasts, I generally prefer podcasts. So out of the ones that I have listed, I personally follow Climate Rising by Harvard Business School and Sustainability Perspective by Refinitiv. And the other podcasts are what were more aligned to ESG. So, I've put up all these. Please feel free to follow them, or, take a dip, take a test. If you don't like it, don't follow them. If you like them, follow them. And but the essence here is that build a good network on LinkedIn. And yeah, coming back to the very major question of job hunt, which also ends at LinkedIn. Right. So it's kind of a summary of all that we have talked about until now. And the kind of steps that I had tried to outline here are the steps to land a job in any sector, be it ESG, be it any other sector. These are the basic things, right? So you need to add credentials to your CV again. So if you already done a master's or have some working experience in ESG or allied sector, you don't need to worry about certifications. If you're someone coming from a different market or a different industry, get some of the certifications, because they show that you are serious about this sector. Other than that, whatever other smaller things that you're doing, put them on your CV. And um, also try and build your knowledge base up to the level of what you're putting into your CV, because once you land an interview, you should have that that kind of confidence that I am able to crack it, irrespective of what my background is, or what my previous work experience is, or what my number of work experiences. Once the interviewer sees that you have the knowledge and the understanding that is required for the job role, it becomes a lot easier. Then the second part is build a strong profile on LinkedIn. And so, of course, other than adding your certificates and adding your educational credentials, try and detail out things on LinkedIn as much as possible, right? So whatever your previous job role was, previous work experience was, try and put in some details. If you're a student, try and put in the details of the assignments that you are doing on LinkedIn. And, of course, be active on LinkedIn, try and create engagement on whatever post you are sharing, try and engage with other, industry leaders who are sharing things on LinkedIn. And that's how you kind of get into the radar of the people who are hiring or who are looking for, for resources, which is linked to the next line of recommendation, which is network with the right people in the industry, right? So more than 90% of the jobs in the corporate world are found through networking, right? So it's the, like, I cannot emphasize enough on this particular step, that you need to network with the right people. I just want to also share that, we all, like, whoever, like, whatever number of people are looking for jobs in ESG, I assure you that the number of vacancies available are still more, right? So if all of you get a great, your dream job in ESG, tomorrow there will still be more vacancies, because that's how the sector is booming right now. As I said, that every company that has a HR department is building a ESG department. So you just imagine the extent of the people who are looking for ESG professionals. So you just need to meet the right people, and you will get hired almost as instantly as you can imagine. Like, be in touch with the right people and have the knowledge, right? Certifications or educational credentials, or whatever other credentials that you want to show are good enough, but you need to have the right knowledge. Okay. Moving forward, always customize your cover letter and make your experience relevant. I'll club both these two together, and please notice that I have emphasized by putting a caps on always and make, right? So what I'm trying to say here is that if you're coming from an industry which is not ESG, like if you're coming from a work experience from, so for example, I've received these questions on the webinar registration form that, I'm someone from a chemistry background, I'm someone from marketing background, I'm someone who has done mechanical engineering. How can I get a job into ESG, right? So what I'm trying to say here is that ESG is a very holistic concept, right? If you're someone coming from a chemistry background, within the E of ESG, we talk about pollution, and most of the solution to pollution comes from chemistry, right? Even within renewable energy, there's a lot of heavy chemistry related stuff, right? So, if you're coming from communication or marketing, that becomes a gist of companies who are trying to promote them as green, as eco-friendly, as sustainable. So there's a whole lot of synergy between marketing and ESG than you are able to think right now. And so that's the beauty of the whole ESG field, that from whatever industry or whatever academic background you're coming from, you can make a career in ESG, but it's you who has the onus of making your experience relevant. And that's why I'm saying that you must always customize your cover letter, because see, whatever are the job requirements and whatever you have done in your past job, you have to try and find that connection between your past job role to the current job requirement, and, like, A, identify that connection yourself, and B, spell it out as clearly as possible on your cover letter. Right? So that's the thing. It's not that you need to come from ESG to work in ESG, right? You just, whatever you have done, make it relevant yourself. And the final solution to every job hunt is LinkedIn. So I will not recommend to go and set up a profile on, say Naukri.com, Monster.com, etc. If you want, you can do that. But because ESG is a comparatively niche sector still, I would recommend go through LinkedIn. You can look at LinkedIn jobs, of course. But other than that, if you again build the right network, you will have ESG jobs coming towards you day in and day out on your LinkedIn feed itself. You don't even need to go and click the icon of LinkedIn jobs. So, that's the power of networking. And, I can just kind of try and believe my words that there are really more jobs available in ESG out there than there are people who are taking up ESG as their career. So, just be in touch with the right people. So yeah, I guess this was all from my side. We can take up questions. What I'll do is that since there are already 10 chats, questions I can see on the chat, I'll just have a look at these, try and address these, and then we'll go to the questions that were back on the webinar registration form. Um, Okay, so yeah, this one question I found. I'm an environmental engineer. Do I need to go for CFI specialization? I think we have already addressed this. You don't need to go for CFI certificate right now. Maybe you can do it after 2 years or 3 years when you want to add something more to your CV. You're a green building consultant. What should be the best certification for you? See, green buildings and uh, urban landscapes, urban planning, this is a whole different story within ESG and within sustainability. It's slightly different than ESG investing, and it's not really my my area of forte. But if you want, I can try and find out some certifications and let you know sometimes later. You can connect with me offline for this. Telegram ESG group to be in touch. Okay. Okay, I hear this. Not well. Okay, fine. Right. So, it's one of the comment that has come up in the chat box, and is also something that I've been thinking earlier, is that if more of you are interested, I can make a WhatsApp group, and whatever ESG related jobs that I come across, I can keep putting it on the group. Right, so if that works with you, whoever, like maybe at the end of the session we can take a poll, and if more people are interested, I'll share a WhatsApp group invite on the chat box. Okay, I master in public policy and elective certification sustainable finance. So within sustainable finance, you can get really good courses on UNCC Learn that I earlier shared. If you want to do even more credible certification, then you would have to go for the CFA ESG investing course. Okay, so right, guys, I would request if we keep the questions more generic, as I said earlier, and we can take up individual questions later. But I'll still try and answer the two that are in front of me right now. So for AmTech in environmental engineering, it's practically same as ESG. Anything you have done in an allied sector, you need not to worry about getting other certifications. If you have an AmTech in environmental engineering, it's as good as probably sustainability management. So you can apply for any jobs which are looking for a master's degree. For CSR professional, again, you don't need any certification. CSR is part of the whole ESG narrative. You just need to understand what ESG is, and once you have the right amount of knowledge, you can very confidently appear in any interviews without the need of any additional certification. Yes, relevant experience is much more important than any certification or any academic qualification. So yeah, that's their financial professionals working in research fields. So CFA investing, so it depends on where you want to land. If you want to land into ESG investment space and you want to continue working with investment banks, go for CFA certification. If you at all wants to move to different stakeholders, then probably take up the GARP certification, because that talks about a larger climate risk and not just about investing. Okay. Right. So I'll now move to the questions that that I have received on the webinar, and I'll try and cover this. Though, as per my understanding, most of them have been covered, but still, just for the sake of it, let me go through the list of questions once. Yeah. Right. So most of the questions that I'm seeing here, we have already covered. How can a fresh graduate start their career in corporate sustainability? We have covered. We have talked about the chemistry background person. We have, yeah, there's someone asking, if the work involves only preparing reports, sitting at your desk, or it's about project implementation as well. So this depends on what stakeholder you're working with. If you are working within a consulting organization, it's mostly about preparing reports, but I've seen a lot of people downplaying um report writing as it's something very easy. No, it's not. It also takes a lot of technical understanding, and even to do a strategy documentation, you need to develop the strategy first, right? So it's not that preparing reports is something lowballing, and implementation is something huge, because implementation within ESG is not like implementation in CSR, right? You don't actually go in the fields and talk to the community people. That kind of implementation does not happen in ESG. But it's still, if someone wants to work in project implementation, the better target would be to work in industries, because then whatever the consultants are making the reports on, or whatever recommendation the consultants are giving you, it would be then your responsibility to implement those recommendations in your organization. So those would be things like doing employee sensitization on ESG, ensuring that say the electricity and water savings in your organization. So probably running some campaigns, ensuring that the right ESG data is available. So those kind of things are there, and that is what the project implementation is. Skills required to become an ESG analyst, we have covered this. Comparison of courses, comparison of quality of courses between CII, KPMG, GRI, etc. All courses are more or less similar. There's no comparison between the course provider. You can check their content and go with the course that is more suited for you, and then also do the cost benefit analysis. Brief introduction of terminologies, we'll take it up at the end.
Oh, hello.
Yes.
Yeah, hi. This is Pragya.
Mhm.
I'm not Pragya, but I'm looking for toward this video. I have a question. Can I ask you right now?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
See, my whole experience of my working profession is 7 years, and now I have a gap of at least 3 years, right?
Mhm.
But I was having experience in a financial field, right?
Okay. Pragya, I would just just request you that can we take up individual questions at the end?
Definitely, for sure, for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes,
Thank you
yes.
so much for that. Right. I just want to cover the generic questions first, and then I'll definitely talk to you. Um. Right. Sorry, I was looking at these questions. Yeah, I think most of the questions here are also covered. There's a question how to move to USA or Canada as an ESG analyst. So it depends on your work authorization. If you have a valid work visa for USA, you can apply for any jobs where your skills and requirement matches. For Canada, as per my understanding, you have to first apply for a PR, and then you can apply for any jobs where your skill set matches. Um,
Hi, Prachi.
yeah, hi.
Hi, Prachi. This is Parth.
Mhm.
And yeah, so I do have a question regarding the green bonds and all these bonds, sustainability bonds, and how they do work. If explore on the internet, there are no such clarity on these bonds, how they do work and how they connect it.
Sure.
Could you give brief information? That
Okay, sure.
okay.
Right. So, green bonds work essentially as same as the general, financial bonds work. That is, a company who wants to raise money from the market issues a bond, and when they issue a bond, they specify that what are they going to do with the proceeds of the bond, right? So suppose I'm in corporate A, I want X amount of money, I issue a bond, and whatever amount then there are investors or retail investors or investment banks that invest into that bond. That is, they buy the bond and they put some money into the company. And I, as a company, specify that using this money that I've raised from the bond, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. Now, when that X, Y, and Z is something that is environmental friendly, that is not, that is trying and reducing GHG emissions from the atmosphere, that is something that is, say, discouraging fossil fuel engagement and so on and so forth, it will be termed as a green bond, right? Similarly, if that XYZ is like, say, building schools, building hospitals, building affordable housing, then that becomes a social bond. And now what this XYZ can be, of course, there needs to be a kind of consensus between all the stakeholders, because say if I say that I want to build a nuclear power plant and it's renewable energy, so it's a green bond, it cannot work like that. So to ensure that all the stakeholders are on the same page, there's something called taxonomy. So a taxonomy is a document which tells you that what all activities can be considered under green bond, what all can be considered under social bond, so on and so forth. Similarly, there are SDG bond, sustainability bond, transition bonds. So that's again a whole different plethora. So yeah, so that's called taxonomy. There's one popular document called EU taxonomy currently, which most of the countries and organizations are currently following. Other than that, there's a taxonomy put forward by Climate Bond Initiative. Then there's a national level taxonomy put forward by government of China. So yeah, that's the scene. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, Prachi, yes, I got yours. Thank you.
Okay, great. I think I'll just take up questions directly live now, because I'm not seeing any questions on the webinar form that are not answered. So please unmute yourself and shoot up the questions. I
Hi.
also see another. Yeah.
Hello.
Sorry. Yes. Go ahead.
I'm Yugendra Katore. I'm EHS professional.
Okay.
And we're working in Tata since last 15 years. So
Okay.
my basic question is, what I need to do to transfer from EHS professional to ESG professional, and what courses are most helpful for me, as I'm a master's in environmental sciences.
Sir, I think you can do up the ESG specialization course either from CFI, or if you want to go kindly more pocket friendly, you can do the courses that Coursera offers, which are from the University of Pennsylvania or Erasmus University. Those are long ESG courses, long-term engagement courses, and they'll give you a very good understanding of how EHS and ESG are different. Like, you might not find a course which exactly tells you the difference between EHS and ESG, but once you understand ESG, you will be able to identify the difference yourself. And yeah, so from that point onwards, you can take up your understanding of ESG and start applying for open positions. And if, as you said, you are coming from EHS background, so I'm sure that you would have been working with an industry earlier. So if suppose you are working with cement industry, then try and apply for the ESG department within the same industry. Might not be the same company, but within the same industry, and so that's how your previous experience would become very useful. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Right. I have few more questions on the chat. I'll just take that quickly, and then we'll continue with the spoken questions. Let me see. CA working with the Big Four. Can you please suggest me a course? So if you want to continue working in the intersection of finance and ESG, go for the courses within ESG investing and sustainable finance. That will give you an edge, and your previous experience of being a CA can also be utilized here. As a CA, there's another thing that you can do is learn non-financial auditing. So there are auditing principles for financial auditing. There are similar principles and standards for non-financial auditing. So, you can probably mix both of them and then, encash on your previous experience. Sustain. Right, I don't see any other question. Please share some of the MBA programs in India. We have covered this, Ayush. We have talked about IIFM, we have talked about IIM Lucknow, we have talked about TIS, TERI. Those are the MBA programs in India. Yeah, I can take up questions. Please unmute yourself and go ahead with the questions.
Hi. Yes.
Hi.
So my name is Namrata. I'm doing my MBA in building sustainability. Recently I was introduced to this concept of ESG and sustainability through my course. I'm more interested in social sustainability aspects. Like, do you know any career-wise options on just social sustainability? Like, it comes under ESG, but it's a small niche.
Yeah. So see, if you specifically want to work on social, then you can look for CSR as one of the career option. It's different than ESG. But like, so within ESG, the social covers a lot of things. Like, it covers gender diversity, it covers accessibility, and CSR then becomes one part of it, which is community engagement. Right. But CSR in itself, because it's a how do I put it? It's an implementation based sector. So CSR
Hi.
also has a lot of scope as a
Hello.
career.
Hi,
Yeah,
sorry
hi.
to interrupt here. I just wanted to help the person who asked this question. I have worked recently with someone who deals in social sustainability. Her name is Dr. Ruby Lahir. So she can connect with her on LinkedIn, and she is also looking for someone who is interested in social sustainability. So the person who has asked this question, she might be helpful to her.
Okay,
So,
great. Thank you so much for
thank
pitching in,
you.
Pragya. I really appreciate.
Yeah.
Yeah, Namrata, I hope you have gotten the details.
Yes, thank you. And I also have like one more question. Like,
Yeah.
Can you speak more about, say, the job opportunities or the starting salaries in this sector?
Yeah, so starting salaries, I would say, would vary from somewhere around 7-8 lakhs per annum to up to 12 to 15 lakhs per annum as well, depending on what experience you're coming from. Not exactly experience, but say what background you're coming from and what kind of um, you know target employer that you are approaching. So it's a wide range, and it's just you need to be able to negotiate well and be able to sell yourself well. You just have to show that you have all the right skills that are needed for the job, and then you have the ball in your court for good negotiation.
Oh, okay. And one last question.
No problem.
ESG in the examples that you've given in this presentation was, I would say, like for big companies or big corporate companies. Do you have any examples or experience with small and medium-sized industries that are localized in India? Or like, is that a thing? Is it growing
See,
into that?
I'll tell you. So what I understand is you're talking about SMEs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So SMEs are not currently part of the mainstream ESG narration because they do not come under the purview of investments, right? And ESG in itself, as I mentioned earlier, is a very investment and investor centric agenda, right? And SMEs are slightly disconnected from that. And also as well, SMEs don't have the regulations from government authorities to make their ESG performance public as compared to the listed companies, right? So that is also a difference. So SMEs are not that out into the sustainability and ESG yet, but many of the corporates who are really responsible and are actually doing good work, they try and engage their suppliers within their own ESG value chain, and that's where a lot of SMEs are getting covered. And hopefully that the trend will go on, and we'll see some more movement in the future.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much.
No problem. I see two more questions on the chat. One is MBA in Sustainability Management from NEETI. So yes, NEETI Mumbai also provides a Sustainability Management MBA course, but I don't understand what kind of details you're asking. You can check up their website. I'm sure they would have all the details that you can think of, or you can go on LinkedIn and try and talk to someone who has done this course already. Then someone is asking GRI and integrated reporting. So these are two different frameworks, and you really don't need to pursue certification for separately for GRI and separately for integrated reporting, right? Once you get into the system, you understand all of these different frameworks very easily once you start working on those. So you don't need to pursue any certification for these. Yeah, I can take up more questions. Anyone can unmute themselves and ask.
Hi,
Arvind, you have
Prachi.
your
Start with you.
Hi, Prachi.
yeah.
Hello. Yeah, Prachi. So I do have, it's not a question, but it's a kind of information I want to get from your side. Like, what kind of things you are doing right now in your job in the TSG? Like, is it reporting
So
or other stuff, or like, yeah. Please.
yes. So, Parth, as I mentioned earlier, I started my job as an ESG consultant, and for 3.5 years, I have done a lot of work on reporting, developing strategies, GHG accounting, and so on. And when I say reporting, I have worked on different frameworks, including GRI, integrated reporting, TCFD, CDP, etc. Then I have done some work on sustainable finance, and currently I'm working freelancing.
Okay, Prachi.
Okay. Yeah, Arvind, you had a question?
Hi, Prachi.
Yes.
I'm working in
Hi.
Sustainalytics currently. I'm a secondary researcher in the climate risk rating team. I'm sure you have an idea of what we do. Second party opinion is one of the areas that I'm exploring. So in India, as per my knowledge, of course, Sustainalytics has a department. I think that's where you work. And ISS also has roles. So how would it be? What are the additional skills I would need to get into those kind of?
Nothing. You just need to be good at secondary research, which you're currently doing. So I'm sure you're good at it. You need to have good writing skills, which is again something that is, like a denominator for all good roles, all good jobs. So yeah, that is all. You have a good understanding of what ESG entails. You have understanding of what sustainability means. You're good to go. You need to know some, like not some, you need to know all the SDGs. You need to have a very basic geopolitical understanding, because and this I'm saying because I know that Sustainalytics second party opinion team which works from India is not catering only to the Indian market. They're catering to whole Asia Pacific as well as European market. So you would be working with clients almost across the globe. So you just need to have a little sensitivity about geopolitical issues. That is, so for which is also something you need not to really worry about, because all of this is available on secondary research, right? So whatever client you are working with, you can very well get into the secondary research and identify what's going on in what country. So no specific skills.
Thanks a lot, Prachi. That's very helpful
No problem.
and encouraging.
Yeah, most welcome.
Yes, Prachi. So I do also second question here.
Yeah, yes, Parth, please go ahead.
Yeah, so as Arvind mentioned, he's working in the sustainability and companies which you is rating that all stuff, right?
Right.
Yeah, so one should start his or her career with like such corporate, from the regulator perspective, or the in the form like the Sustainalytics or the ST Global or something kind, like you got my point, right? Yeah.
Yes. So, Parth, firstly, I would like to clarify that Sustainalytics is also a regulator and rating provider. So these are not different. And in terms of starting a career as a fresher, I would recommend to start with consultancies, because those are generic. So you really need to have good soft skills and good understanding of the sector. You need not to have any specific technical hard skill to get into consulting, like you need to have financial understanding, or those kind of things are not needed in consulting. B, within consulting you get to work on multiple projects at the same time with multiple clients in multiple industries. So so your learning curve is very steep within a consulting organization. And so once you've spent 2 to 3 years in a consulting organization as a ESG consultant, you get a damn good clarity on what you are good at, what you want to do, what you don't want to do, and then from that point onwards you can you can make your switches and changes.
Okay, Prachi.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, anyone else can unmute and ask.
Hi, Prachi, Pragya here.
Yes.
I have pursued my post-graduation in environment engineering, and then I worked for 2.5 years as an environment engineer and as an academician. So I
Okay.
was working in the both the fields at the same time.
Mhm.
So right now I have pursued UNCC learn courses,
Mhm.
and as you said that being an environment engineer, I don't need any another specific course to be in ESG.
Mhm.
So what my dilemma is right now is I'm finding it hard to approach consultancies, and I'm not sure what consultancies are rightly working there. So could you help me on that?
Yes. So, Pragya, as I mentioned earlier, all the consulting organizations that you can think of, say the big fours, we all know the name: EY, KPMG, PwC, Deloitte. They all have a good good um, ESG and sustainability teams. Then you have Accenture, Grant Thornton, BDO. They also have really good, these ESG departments. Then there's Infosys, TCS, even Wipro have their own ESG consulting department. So these are the ones that are, at the top of my fingertips, but, I'm sure there are more,
Absolutely.
right?
So
I
you
think
said,
you can use at least these names to start your,
yeah,
job hunt.
and whenever I see this recruitment process or vacancy, I see
Mhm.
there's they require a minimum certain years of experience
Right,
from
but
any consultancy, and I have a knowledge of EIA and EMP as should. Do you know about it?
yes,
Environment impact assessment and
yes,
environment management plan. But
yes.
I haven't worked in it as a professional. I know
Mhm.
about it, but I don't have experience, so I find it hard to get into it.
No, so I think what you can do is that, you just need to have good confidence to compensate, your hands-on experience. You just need to convince the, other person that, your knowledge is kind of good enough for you to get started. And secondly, within consulting, again, the good part is that consulting organizations are majorly looking for good soft skills as compared to good technical skills. Of course you need to have good technical skills, but
Sorry, I'll mute my.
yeah, yeah, no problem. um yeah, so so as I said earlier, consultings are mostly generic, right? So no matter whatever technical and hard skills you are taking with you to enter into consulting, you are going to learn much more there, right? So uh, they ensure that you learn all the right technical skills or technical understanding on the job. But while going through recruitments, they specifically look for good soft skills, passion about learning, the right attitude and those kind of things. So cracking into consulting should not be that difficult if you're approaching the interviews with the right attitude and you have relevant experience. So I think that should definitely act as a plus point. Okay, I can take up more questions. Okay, there are many questions on the chat.
Thank you for the information and encouraging me to take this up right now.
Okay, thank you so much. Right. Someone is asking, I'm a postgraduate in rural management, have experience in CSR, and there's some break of 2 years in career. So, in order to start my career in ESG, how should I begin? You should start applying for vacant position. That's how you begin any job hunt. You make a good LinkedIn profile, you make a good CV, you make a good cover letter, and you start applying. To whatever vacancies you find. And if at all you're finding you're facing difficulty in finding the right vacancies, as I mentioned earlier, go to LinkedIn, do the basic search on LinkedIn jobs and connect with the right people. So yeah, any other question, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask the question. I have another question on chat from Avi. I'm working in the field of environment investigator. What should I do to? Again, nothing. You are already in the ESG sector. If you have done an MTech in energy and environment, it is the ESG sector. Again, ESG is nothing new. ESG is just a word that is linked to investment. Yeah, can you share interesting engagement projects for ESG which you have come across? I don't really understand, Akshay, what you mean by engagements or projects for ESG. Are you trying to understand what are the different roles within ESG? You can unmute and ask a question directly.
Hey Prachi, so I'm
Akshay.
partly working as in a consulting firm. So I was just intrigued by what kind of projects do you usually come across in the ESG space when clients come to consulting? Like, what do they really look for? And is there any specific categories, or is there anything which is common?
Sure. Right. Yeah, I think that's a good question because it will give an idea, I think, to everyone about what it is like to work in consulting and what kind of projects you come across within consulting. So one of the cash cows is developing sustainability reports or ESG reports, whatever you want to call it. It's one and the same thing. Then developing ESG strategies, it's comparatively more interesting than developing reports. Because it takes a lot of brainstorming, a lot of good understanding of the industry that your client is in. So that is there. Then this GHG accounting, the supply chain sustainability, wherein the client wants to optimize their supply chain, their carbon neutrality plans. So, we have to develop the whole plan and recommendation that what client needs to do in order to achieve carbon neutrality. And then it does not just remain generic recommendation. You need to really kind of try and understand the whole business of the client, and then make specific recommendations and suggestions that what do they need to cut down to reduce their GHG emissions, and so on and so forth. So yeah, those are the kind of projects that mostly I have worked with, and yeah, most of the ESG consultants do.
And that's helpful, Prachi. I have one follow-up question.
Yes.
Can you suggest anything on supply chain sustainability, like courses or?
No, so supply chain sustainability in itself is not that big a topic that that you need any specific courses for that. It's just about ensuring that the suppliers are also sustainable, and probably designing some kind of screening criteria for for the suppliers. Before onboarding a supplier, the company should be able to screen out good and bad ESG performers. And so it's kind of not everything, and not every small skill would lead down to a certification or a course. These are just very generic things that you learn on the job. So need not to worry about things as small as that.
Thanks, Prachi. That's helpful.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, Path has suggested a course on EDX. You can look at that, Akshay. Any other question? Oh, great. We still have like approximately half an hour left. I'm happy to take all kinds of questions if no generic questions are coming.
Yeah, Prachi, so let me ask also one thing. Like this framework BRS recently this SEBI has mandated to the sustainability reporting kind of stuff. So yeah, so could this corporate like link with any GR document or any other document, or we have to make other different BRSR?
Right. So generally, BRSR is linked to the sustainability report itself. Just some organizations prefer to put in their BRSR as an appendix into their financial report as well, because it's a compliance requirement, whereas ESG reporting is not a compliance requirement. So they want to keep those things separate. But more often than not, BRSR goes as an appendix into the ESG report. And what most organizations, the approach they follow is that they prepare either a GRI based or an integrated reporting framework report, and then they index the BRSR requirements from within the GRI report. And that's how it becomes easier, because almost all the requirements and criteria in BRSR are overlapping with GRI, but GRI is like more globally accepted, and so they prefer to keep the main body of the report on GRI and then use BRSR within the index. Is that what you were looking for, Parth?
Yes,
Does
yes.
this answer your question? Okay, great. I have another question. Are evolving very quickly globally and fast, like a common these things. So there's a rising demand of credible data and data availability. The construction of ESG rating is not regulated to rationalize the rules and framework. Yes, definitely, Chandan. That is what is kind of going on around the world in the whole sustainability, corporate sustainability and ESG domain. And we have recently seen that SESB and integrated reporting merged together to come up with value reporting framework. And now value reporting framework and GRI are also working together to come up with a universal, sustainability standards. So there are definitely things going on in those directions. But also having said that, even if we at some point in time we do achieve a common standard framework globally, I guess there will still be national level or regional level customizations. So for example, BRSR is a India specific framework, and there are also industry specific frameworks, so like there's something called GRESB, which is only applicable to real estate companies. So those kind of how I should say, variations would still be there, because the context changes from country to country and from industry to industry. But overall, I guess the world is working towards a common sustainability standard or a reporting framework. Okay. Which suggest me which parameter is we should look for study? I did not get your question, Chandan, if this is you. So please suggest me which parameter is we should look for study. Can you unmute yourself and ask the question? Okay, so I guess if you're trying to ask me that out of say GRI, SESB, IIRC, which framework you should study or learn about, the answer is all. Until these frameworks are in are in publication, are accepted globally, the client companies would have you making their reports in all of these frameworks. So you need to know about all the frameworks. Right, then there's another question. What will be the framework of ESG for ULB to report? Any policy around? Right. So if you by ULB you mean urban local body, then there's one framework from CDP which is for cities to report on. That is the only framework or standard that I know about that a city can report on. So that is there. Share the ESG framework links to download the different frameworks. So different frameworks are, I can type in the name of the frameworks and like, you can definitely go ahead and check their websites and look at the frameworks. Better would be to look at the sample reports from different companies, right? So look at the reports from the good ESG players, so like Mahindra and Mahindra, Coca-Cola, Tata, Hindustan Unilever, ACC man. So these are some of the, even Infosys. So these are some of the companies that have been publishing good sustainability reports for quite some time now. And reading these reports will give you a better understanding of the frameworks than the skeletal, framework, I would say. Right. So, but I'm still, typing down the different frameworks.
Prachi, for
Yes.
ULB, is there any authority to tell them that you have to report, or is because
No. So it is not mandated by the government. CDP is a voluntary disclosure. If the ULBs wants to report, they can, but nobody is asking them to do it necessarily.
and for the private companies also?
For the private companies, so if I talk about India, the companies that are listed in Bombay Stock Exchange, the top 500 or the top 1,000 companies, they are mandated by Government of India, Ministry of Corporate Affairs to report on BRSR, which there are talks that the BRSR will also become more aligned to the global ESG requirements, which it is not currently. So from the government compliance point of view, they need to report on BRSR, which is mandatory. Other than that, most of the corporate companies which are expecting some kind of investment, though it is not like mandatory, but there's a pressure from investors to disclose their ESG performance. So that is the dynamics there. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I am just putting these different frameworks out on the chat. So I'll also talk about the frameworks, and because there were earlier question about different terminologies. So GRI is, as proposed by the Global Reporting Institution, is one of the most popular framework. It has 3 different parts to it. One talks about the economic performance, one talks about the environmental, and one talks about the social performance. So it's the most followed framework. Within GRI, one can go for a core reporting option, or you can go for a comprehensive reporting option. So that depends on whatever the clients wants to do. Value reporting framework, very similar to GRI. There are many overlapping topics, but it is a amalgamation of the earlier or the erstwhile SESB reporting framework and integrated reporting framework. So it basically works around the 6 value model you might have heard of. So there's environmental value, human capital, like the 6 capitals. So environmental capital, human capital, social capital, manufactured capital, intellectual capital, and there's another I'm forgetting. Yeah, the economic capital, like the financial capital, of course. So these are the 6 capital model that value reporting frameworks works around. CDP again is a voluntary disclosure. CDP is more like a questionnaire, so you don't disclose CDP as a report and you put it out in the public domain. CDP is a questionnaire which the CDP organization sends your company. So and it is up to CDP to send you or not. If you want to respond to CDP questionnaire, you are like, your company can reach out to CDP. They'll send you the questionnaire. You respond on their questionnaire, and their questionnaire is again very similar to what GRI asked for. So for example, CDP has 3 different questionnaires, one for forestry, one for water, one for climate change. And your company can choose to respond to as many as they like. They can only respond to climate change, only respond to water, whatever, they are comfortable with. And so for example, CDP climate change questionnaire would have questions around emissions, scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 emissions, what has been the difference from past year, what is the trend, different energy consumption formats, what are you doing to reduce your energy consumption, and those kind of questions will be there. You submit your response, CDP assess your response and then gives you a rating like A, B, C, D, those kind of ratings. Then TCFD is slightly different than the other reporting frameworks, because the other reporting frameworks try and understand how how your business is affecting climate or affecting the external environment, whereas TCFD is trying and try to understand, or make you understand, is how the climate change is affecting your financial viability as a company. Right, so TCFD essentially proposes a risk model using which what you can do is that there are 2 major risks. There are physical risk, and then there are market related intermediate risk. So using that framework, a company can assess that how climate change is posing a risk to their business, and then they can develop their risk mitigation systems. So TCFD is more like a recommendation for your risk mitigation systems. And if you align with TCFD within your GRA report or any other report you're publishing, you just have to enter 1 or 2 paragraph on what TCFD based risk you have identified for your company and how you are planning to mitigate them. So yeah, that is TCFD. Then GHG accounting is a different ball game, because within GHG accounting, you try and assess how much GHG emission a company has put forward into the atmosphere. And then again, there are different protocols that you need to follow to do that. Like there are different options that you can follow. One is GHG protocol, one is ISO 14000. So whatever you are choosing, you will then have to follow the particular protocol. There are 3 scopes within the GHG protocol. It's called scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3 emissions. Scope 1 emission are about direct energy consumption or direct fuel consumption. So for example, if a company is burning coal, burning diesel, any kind of fuel, if it's direct consumption, that comes into scope 1. Scope 2 emission are the emissions associated with electricity consumption, and then everything else comes under scope 3. So scope 3 in itself has 15 categories, things like downstream transportation, upstream transportation, sale of purchased goods, then waste, employee commuting, business travel, franchisee. So there are 15 different categories that come under scope 3. So yeah, I think any other terminologies that I'm missing and anyone wants to get them covered? Yeah.
TNFD is we are more in biodiversity for pre and post construction biodiversity assessment. So
I'm not understanding you. There's a lot of noise in between.
Sorry.
Can you repeat your question again?
Sorry. So we are more in the biodiversity assessment. So post pre-construction biodiversity assessment. So there's one framework, TNFD. Recently, they have made this TNFD framework like TCFD. So how could be beneficial for our firm, or how could we report through the TNFD? It's like task force on nature-based financing disclosure, like something.
Yes. So TNFD is something which is still in the making. TNFD is kind of a, it's been proposed forward by the TCFD's sister concern committee, which is now named as TNFD, which is, task force on, nature-related disclosures. So that, as I said, still a work in progress. It's just been the first draft that has been put forward, and once it is out in the market, I'm sure like people are following TCFD recommendations. We'll start following TNFD, which talks about how other than the climate related risk, how the other nature related you know risk are implicating your business model.
Okay.
Hi, Prachi. Jay
Hi.
here.
Hi, Jay.
Actually, most of our consultancy companies are working for outside of the companies, which is the manufacturing or whatever companies we have,
Right.
to report online this framework. So why those countries and those manufacturing companies are reporting to those framework, and uh, those countries have some policies to report this compulsory to report this kind of framework, and what kind of benefit they are getting from to report after reporting this framework.
Okay, so Jay, it again all boils down to investor expectation, right? The companies are reporting because the investor wants to look at their performance before making an investment decision,
Okay.
right? That's the major driver and pressure on any corporate company to report their ESG performance. The second pressure is coming from the governments, because in some countries it is now a compliance requirement, in some countries it is not. Then again, the more the company is putting forward their climate related disclosures or their ESG related disclosures out in the public domain, the more the company is seen as a more credible green company or a more sustainable eco-friendly company, which also affects their sale subsequently, because the customer are also now getting more and more aware, and the customers also wants to associate with more sustainable companies. So these are the major drivers. And then of course, if company is doing sustainability right, it is a risk management tool for themselves. It it helps them bring down their cost. And yes, that's
Okay.
Okay. Right, there's a question: what are your thoughts and suggestion? Which key analytical tool for this purpose should we learn to? I think Rachna Kumari has asked this question, which I did not quite understand. So if you want to repeat the question, please feel free to do so. Devraj is asking, is it mandatory to calculate scope 3? No, nothing is mandatory. Not even scope 1 and scope 2 are mandatory. Everything is voluntary. The company do it if they want to do it, if they have the right resources to do it, and if it's going to look good on their report. So if a company is disclosing TCFD, disclosing on CDP reporting, and they have just started their GHG accounting process, they will limit to scope 1 and scope 2. But if a company in itself is mature about their sustainability actions and has been working on sustainability and ESG for a long term, like the companies I mentioned earlier, Mahindra, Tata, etc., then they deliberately themselves go ahead and calculate their scope 3 emissions as well, because they are conscious about bringing down their emissions. So nothing is mandatory, it's all voluntary. Then I have a question from Akshay: which regulator organization is widely accepted? If you're talking about frameworks, then GRI is the one that is widely accepted, and TCFD is gaining momentum day by day. Suggestions for secondary research, apart from the ones already mentioned, data sources will be helpful. I did not get your second part of the question, Akshay. Any suggestions for secondary research, as in what secondary research you want to, or you're talking about secondary research as a skill?
In terms of projects, Prachi, so there might be several categories, right? Like travel or IT, and you're looking for ways where probably you can recommend to companies of how you can reduce your emissions or improve your ESG, and
No, so Akshay, unfortunately, there's no such generic recommendation, and I'm sure that there will be some content available somewhere out on the internet that what are some of the actions that companies can take, and you can try and search for them on the on Google, and see what you find. But as per my understanding, those recommendation actually needs to be customized to the companies specifically, right? So if you're talking working with an automobile company, if you're working with an IT company, things changes drastically, right? What might work for one company would not work for the other. So if you're say talking about carbon neutrality, we really need to understand that what are the business operations of this company and where's the maximum scope of cutting down the emissions. And then of course there's so much emissions that one can cut down. So one thing that is equally applicable to all companies is to take up carbon credits. And that is the last option after cutting down the maximum emissions one possibly can, and then you can go for carbon credits.
Got it. Thanks, Prachi.
Okay. Will you be sharing a link for a WhatsApp group for ESG to share information, and why will you be sharing the slides? So I won't be sharing the slides separately as a PDF or a PPT, but I'll be putting up the recording of this session on on public platform a few days later, and so you can access the recording at any point in time. I'll be putting the link on my LinkedIn post. If you all want, I can also send the recording link on an email to all of you as I send the invite. Secondly, on WhatsApp, yes, just give me a minute. I have created one WhatsApp link. I'll share that, and this is for ESG related jobs. So if at all you are interested, please feel free to join this group. Yeah, so whatever ESG related vacancies I come across on daily basis, and I do come across a lot of vacancies, I'll just keep sharing on the group. And whatever vacancies you find useful for yourself or aligned to yourself, please feel free to go ahead and apply to those. Okay, right. I guess also other than that, because we were talking about these different terminologies and different frameworks, different standards, and these in itself are very, very long processes and very in-depth topics to be covered. And I've just given a very basic understanding of what these frameworks are, but if any of you are interested in understanding these frameworks in detail, you want to learn and learn to work on these frameworks, have some enhanced experience, and if more people are interested, maybe I can plan a similar webinar specifically for those frameworks, like a whole webinar or a workshop only and only for GRI framework, and then a similar for GHG accounting, and so on and so forth. So I think at the end of our today's discussion, probably in a day or two's time, I'll send a feedback form to all of you. So please feel free to give your feedback for this particular webinar, and on the same form, I'll try and put up some questions where you can express your interest for similar workshops in the future. Those would be topic specific. Like today we largely discussed about the career approach, but in the upcoming workshops we can talk about particular topics like GRI, GHG accounting, etc. So yeah, we can do that. All right. Yeah, thanks Bhavik, thanks Parth. Anybody else, any question? We still have like 10 minutes to go.
Yeah, ma'am. Ma'am, I had one question.
Yeah.
Ma'am, like, is there any kind of website or something wherein we can see the percentages of ESG fundings in various sectors? Like in agriculture sector, what percentage of ESG fundings are coming to India, or suppose in FMCG sector, what percentage of ESG funding is coming? So like my question is there any website or some portal wherein we can have a gist of knowing what percentage of ESG funds are going into which sector? That's what I wanted to know.
Yeah. Sagar, just want to check, are you also the same person who asked this question about agroforestry on the webinar
Yes,
form?
yes.
Okay,
Yes,
yeah,
ma'am.
I missed that question. I wanted to answer that. And
Thank
thanks
you.
for reminding. So, firstly, I just want to bring it out again that see, ESG in itself is just an investor centric word, right? So ESG is all about investments. And I think we should, we need, whenever we are trying to talk about the concept and the domain, I think sustainability would be a better word to use. And as you said, that can ESG help and promote agroforestry, commercial agroforestry in India? So my understanding is that it might not have a very direct relevance with investments, but see, again, within ESG and within sustainability, we talk about emissions, and then within emissions we talk about decarbonization and carbon neutrality, which brings down to carbon credits, right? And no company who is looking at carbon neutrality can do without buying carbon credits, which is where agroforestry can be of great help. um, because agroforestry can put up those carbon credits in the market for the companies to purchase, and that can promote commercial agroforestry to a very huge extent in India or in any other country, right? So that's, again, I think is the beauty of ESG or sustainability as a concept, that it is very holistic. So each and everything can be covered under sustainability. And coming back to your topic, coming back to your current question on how much ESG fund is coming to, say, agroforestry in India, it is kind of difficult to assess because, see, most of the funding or investment that is coming, it might not be labeled as ESG funding directly. Right? There are few companies. So, so for example, when I was doing the presentation, I had put in a company called Responsibility under the financial institution. So responsibility in itself is actually a fund and not like an investment bank or something. And this fund specifically invest into agriculture related projects or food related startups or small companies. And if you might have heard about Avishkar, which is also a similar um, you know uh, say a target oriented fund in India. So there are some funds which are targeted and can call themselves as ESG fund, but most of these are not. The bigger investment companies, investment banks, like say HSBCs or say BlackRocks and Morgan Stanleys of the world, they invest in companies based on their financial performance and based on what financial returns they are taking back. And they are just using ESG as a screening tool to ensure that the company is not doing poorly on ESG, but they can't really be called as ESG fund, because once the company receives the fund, the company can also be doing, say, fossil fuel exploration with those funds. And so it's very difficult to track those, but you can try and find specific funds such as responsibility, which are targeted funds. Does that help you?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, it clears a lot many things. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Sure,
Yeah,
no problem. Thank you. Okay, I've got a question from Jay. What's your opinion of carbon credit system at India level? What is the process of volunteer carbon credits? Non-citizen or society organizations. Sorry, Jay, I did not understand the second part of your question. First part I can answer. Carbon credit system in India and everywhere, else around the world has the same challenge of, coming up at the, kind of creating a consensus on the carbon pricing, because, it keeps going up and down and works within the market system. So, it is very volatile. It is very flexible. Earlier, historically, once carbon market has crashed, and it's kind of still picking up from that slump. And I believe it's yet to reach its maturity around the globe, not just India. And the
So
process for
is there any mechanism for volunteer reporting for the carbon credits? Like it is require any particular organization, or we can do
Yes,
that also.
yes. So yeah, so as Parth mentioned, CDP also certifies carbon credit, but also there is something called gold standards. I'm forgetting the full name of the organization, but there's this carbon credit gold standards which certifies the carbon credits. Then your carbon credit also needs to be listed on UNFCCC, which which also gives credibility to the carbon credits. It's not like you planted some trees and you can go up and sell the carbon credits.
That's
Those
right.
needs to be accredited from the right agencies, and then they are put up in the market. Okay. Right, we are near to the end of the session. Any last questions from anyone? Okay, I think if we don't have any questions, we are good to go. I'll end this session, and yeah, I'll try and share the feedback form as soon as possible. I've already shared the link for the WhatsApp group invite. I hope you all found this useful, and let's try and connect again whenever possible. Right. Okay, thank you everyone for taking out time on a Friday evening, and enjoy your weekend. Thank you so much. Have a good day. Bye.